Hey everybody, this is JG. For this smoke session, this is a continuation of the first video. We're using the Masterbuilt 560 and the 3 gravity smoker comparison. We are using the same exact recipe. We're using the same exact ribs from Costco. We're using Royal Oak, the regular lump charcoal. And we'll be using the same technique, 250 degrees for about an hour and a half. We'll come back and check the temperature. And when it gets up to about 165, 170, we'll wrap them with honey and butter, a little bit of apple juice, and then we'll throw them back on for about another hour and a half until it comes up to about 190. We'll unwrap it and throw it back on the smoker until it touches about 205. As soon as it's at 205, we'll take it off and have another taste comparison. We'll also be using the same oil separator to pull off the au jus to brush the ribs afterwards. It should be a solid comparison of one smoker to the other. We'll come back in just a few minutes. All right, looks like the charcoal is lit pretty well. For the 560, we're using essentially the same technique that I use with the Old Country. Once you light the charcoal down from the firebox, the 560 actually has a slot right here for a fire starter. We're also using the same post oak that we used in the last barbecue video. But to use it, it actually has 2 different electrical switches that prevent the temperature controller from starting or engaging. So one of the 2 safety switches is this one right here. The controller will not work unless the lid is closed, and that switch is engaged. So we'll close that off. You can hear the beep up top. And the second one is this one up at the top. And you'll need to close the top lid, secure it down for it to do anything. So Sean, I think we were doing at 250 degrees.
Yes, sir. So on here, actually I'm going to use my app. So Masterbuilt has an app that you can download onto your smartphone, and you can control your entire system with the app. So you can take it and connect it to the app itself, and then you want to set your temp. So we're going to set it at 250 degrees. Once it's there, you just hit set temp, and you'll see that on the gauge itself, it's going to cycle through between time and temperature. If you want to check, you can see the temp. So either through the app or on the screen itself, so you can see we're at 83 degrees Fahrenheit right now, and it's going to continue to climb until we reach the 250. Once you set the temperature, you can hear the fan kick on, so that's just going to cycle that heat through and start the climbing heat.
So I think one of the most interesting things about this gravity smoker is how quickly it gets up to heat. Compared to mine, it usually takes about 30 minutes of that temperature controller of mine just blowing non-stop until it actually gets up to about that 225, 250. But these Masterbuilts, they'll get up to temperature in something like 10 minutes.
Correct.
So 7 to 10 minutes. And I think that's absolutely outstanding. So there's a whole lot less time wasted. In this example, we're actually inside preparing the ribs before we even came out here and did this. Usually whenever I do, it's the complete opposite. I actually start up the smoker first.
So that the time, I mean, you can see we're already almost to 100 degrees from the 83.
Cycle back through again, see if I can get a picture. 95, and it was at 81. I mean, this fan, when it kicks in, it's pretty powerful.
It rocks it.
Absolutely. So what about any kind of issues or quirks that you've discovered? Anything else besides the 2 engagement switches?
No, so lighting it, leaving the top drawer or top door open when I'm lighting it, just to help get that initial fire going, was a learning curve for myself. It probably would have been for someone a little more experienced than I am. And then just letting it do its job. I'm an instant gratification kind of guy, so I was expecting it to be a lot faster, understanding that it's definitely doing what it's supposed to be doing and doing it at a very quick rate. My instinct was to just keep opening it and checking the temperatures and all that kind of stuff. So learning the system itself was a learning curve for me, but I'm kind of new to the smoking gig, and this is my first actual smoker that I have, or that I've gotten. So Otherwise, I have zero complaints with this system, with this smoker combo. It does exactly what I need it to do, and it does exactly what I'm going to need it to do for future.
So I just want to point this out. Already at 250 degrees. So that is absolutely silly how quickly it got up there. But yeah, especially for what this is, being a grill smoker combo, you know, I think that's the major selling point of this. The fact that you can bump it up to 700 degrees if you need it,
Absolutely.
as well as something as low as that 225, 250 for classic, you know, smoking.
Absolutely. It's easy to maneuver and move to where I need it. The only thing that it requires is the power source and access to Wi-Fi, so that you can utilize that app. But the app makes things seamless, because once I set the timer, I can set it and then go do whatever I need to do inside or anywhere else, and it'll constantly remind me. I can check the temperature anytime, any place, not necessarily having to come back to the grill itself. So that app just adds a whole new feature to it that makes life easier and more convenient while I'm slow cooking something.
So the ThermoWorks billows and signal setup that I have on mine, the temperature controller, is exactly the same connectivity that I was looking for. It has a Wi-Fi and allows everything to be controlled pretty much wherever you are. You can check the temperature and whatever needs to be done. So I think
It's
it's super
a
solid.
very nice feature to not have to be standing in front of it outside, watching the temperature and making sure that it's staying where it needs to be able to check it remotely is a very neat feature.
Oh, so it's up to temperature. Let's throw the ribs on.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. So we use the same rub recipe that I've been using for the other rib and pork butt videos. Have the recipe in the comment section and everything else. But as you can see, we have some pretty solid real estate in here, and easily enough for the 3 racks that we're throwing on today. So let's throw them on.
I'm just going to use my hands here.
So close her up, and we'll be coming back in about 1.5 hours to check the temperature. If everything's within that range that we're looking for, we'll wrap them up and throw them back on.
Sounds like a plan, Jess.
So we're about an hour in, and one of the things that I think is a little interesting is that the oak block that we added in, as soon as we put everything on, still has a lot more time and life left in it. Usually right now with the old country, we would have added at least 1 or 2 more chunks in there for flavoring. So just a side note for it. One more piece about the Masterbuilt is that the condensation really likes to form on this. That is one more difference compared to the old country that we don't see. With the old country, the condensation doesn't collect and form on the top. All right, Sean, I think we're about an hour and a half in. Starting to look great. So here's a few things that we want to look for. So this bark, we're looking for to make sure it's not tacky. It's coming off, or it's not coming off. That's exactly what we're looking for. So the bark has set, and now we're looking for about that 165, 160-ish range. And if you'll just probe it in the center, so where it's at. So I think that one's on the bone. Let's pull it off just to the side right there. As you can see, we're in that 165-ish range. So let's go ahead and pull these off. We'll wrap them. We'll use the honey, the butter, the apple juice, and then we'll throw them back on for about another hour and a half or so. And we'll come back. All right, we got everything wrapped up. We use the same honey, butter, apple juice process as before.
Now, Justin, do you want me to put this other one on the top rack, or do you just stack it on top?
Oh yeah, top rack is right there, that one. Yep. Looks great. So at this point, we had just checked the bark and everything. The bark was set on absolutely everything. So let's come back in about 1.5 hours. And what we're looking for is a temperature of about 190. So we will come back 1.5 hours. We'll do the same temperature probing process. We'll unwrap one of them, shove the probe in there, looking for 190, 195-ish, that range. As soon as that's in the ballpark, we'll take them off, unwrap them, and throw them back on.
Okay.
So I'll see you in 1.5 hours. All right, we're about 1.5 hours in. Let's go ahead and check the temperature. Looking for about 190 degrees Fahrenheit. If everything probes out, then we'll take them off, unwrap them, and throw them on until they're about 205 or so. Just look for a fleshy spot, like somewhere in the middle. And so it's reading about 210. Let's probe one more spot, a little bit thicker off to the right. .210. Let's pull them off. Let's unwrap them, throw them back on. All right, so we just threw the ribs back on there. They were probing a little high. Thought that was pretty interesting compared to the old gravity or old country gravity that I have. They're essentially done, but we're gonna throw them on for about 45 minutes to tack up a little bit, and then we'll pull them off and we'll cut into them. So let's talk about some of the things that we learned about the Masterbuilt 560. So it comes up to temperature super quick. We learned that whenever we're opening the door here, it actually continues to try to come up the temperature. So you have the fan blowing nonstop, essentially, if you open it.
Correct. So if you open the front, it'll register your beep, letting you know that you have an open circuit. However, the fan will still kick on, trying to maintain that temperature.
And I think ultimately what that means is whenever you're using it, just to make sure that you're not coming up over temp, you want to turn it off if you're opening the door, trying to maintain temperature, that kind of thing. The thermal work setup, the signals that we have here, it's what we're using to probe the ribs. It actually has an auto off feature, an open door feature. So whenever you open the door to the old country that I have it set up for, it registers that temperature differential, and then it turns off the fan. So that's something that we're not seeing in the Masterbuilt. Pretty interesting, but it's not surprising based on the price alone. I think the ThermalWorks signals is effectively half the price of this smoker. I think that for what it is so far, it works incredibly well. Just something to be aware of. One of the other things that Sean and I were learning was the wood situation. So in the old country, I typically add an entire piece of wood every 45 minutes or so. So we've been going for well over, 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And the thing that we have learned is that typical wood split size that I use on the old country does not work, I would say, very well with the Masterbuilt. So I think if you're picking up chunks from the store, Academy, Cabela's, the smaller chunk bags, I think that work really well. But for what I cut down personally, that I think works really well in my smoker, I think you need to use
in mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to use something a little bit smaller, something that doesn't take as long to burn. I think so far we're actually seeing that on the color. Personally, on my smoker at home, I get a deeper, darker mahogany color that I haven't quite seen on these, but that doesn't necessarily mean the flavor isn't there.
Correct. Understood.
So I think overall, this works incredibly well. Oh, and another big thing. So the two grates, out of the 3 racks of ribs that we're cooking, the top rack actually has a pretty large temperature difference, to the point what we were seeing was, as soon as we pulled things off to wrap them, the top rack was actually much more, I'm gonna say, less done.
Rare. Yeah.
Yeah, than the 2 bottom ones. And we just pulled these off to unwrap them. The 2 bottom ones, we had bones showing. They were phenomenal looking. And when we put things back on, one of the racks that was, I'm gonna say, not showing as much, we actually put that on the bottom, this first rack right here, in an attempt to bring that up to the same doneness level as the other 2. So I think overall it works incredibly well, but there is a pretty substantial temperature difference from top to bottom. And I think the other night when we were grilling on it too, especially with those burgers.
Yeah, I was set on the burgers as well.
Yeah, so I think if you're looking to bring things off that direct heat, the bottom grate is probably, just a guess here, I mean we'd have to measure it, I'm gonna say anywhere between 50 to 75 degrees difference than that top rack.
I would agree with that.
So we got a couple minutes based on the doneness that we just probed these at and threw them back on. I was suggesting that we leave them on for about 45 minutes just for everything to tack up, and as soon as it sets, we'll pull them off and cut into them. We'll taste everything and look at the color, the flavor, and compare it to the old country.
Sounds like a plan, Justin.
All right, let's come back in a bit. All right, 45 minutes is up. These are well done. Everything has reached the temperature that we were talking about. Let's show this final color right as we're pulling everything off. Of this beautiful, beautiful mahogany across everything. So we're gonna take these off, we're gonna cut into them. So one of the big things about the Masterbuilt is the fact that it really comes up to temperature stupid quick. We just took the ribs off. They're resting for a quick minute before we start cutting into them. Threw some hot dogs on for the kids, bumped it up to 400 degrees, and it came up to temperature in, I think, literally 30 seconds. So it's a grill that's very capable as a grill and a smoker, but we'll come back in just a second with the taste test. All right, so my buddy had a couple people over, just wanted to have a few closing thoughts on this. Post a picture of the final product here and talk about it. The smoke ring was ridiculous, probably about a 1/4 inch all the way around. In the old country, you get the smoke ring, but it usually comes from the top down. This one is all the way around. So we did the same mopping method. It was absolutely gorgeous. And the flavor is absolutely there. I think the oak flavor from the old country is much more prominent, but I think overall presentation from Masterbuilt is much more pronounced. I think between the two, I would definitely say that the old country produces better flavor, but the Masterbuilt produces better color and better presentation. So if I had to choose between them, it depends on what I was going for. I think flavor-wise, only old country for sure, but Masterbuilt makes a solid product. Because of the temperature differential from top to bottom, I'm definitely going to say you need to be cognizant of what you're cooking, because that top grate here is at least about 50 degrees cooler than the bottom. So the 2 racks we had on the bottom were that perfect bite through texture, absolutely wonderful. The one that we had on the top to begin with, it was a little bit more dense. It was not pull away from the bone. So out of the 3 racks of ribs, 2 were absolute money. One of them was fall off the bone. I think that's because we were trying to rotate things through. I don't like fall off the bone, as I mentioned in my previous video. I like a bite through texture. So as we were rotating everything through, there was one that was bite through, and it was fantastic. So it does use less wood than the old country, But we'll circle back around. Just trying to get the Assassin 17 on the next video because the work schedule, everybody with these smokers I work with, we're all rotating back and forth through everything. So you can expect the Assassin video probably in about 3 weeks, I think. And I'll take a look at what that has to compare to the other two. Thanks for watching.